So I think all of that contributes to, your mental health. And I firmly believe that your mental health impacts every aspect of your life, including your physical health.
Mhm.
So it really is the driver of so much.
So, what are some things that we can and should do if we find ourselves in a position where we've gone beyond just sadness, for example? All I want to do is sit at home and sit in my favorite chair or stay in bed, don't really want to talk to anybody. And so I've gone beyond just a period of sadness, which I'm so glad you talked about. Let me talk about that for just a second. Some things are just feelings: happy, sad, excited, anger, scared, all of that. They're just feelings and they're okay. But then, as you mentioned, sadness can turn into something else,
Right.
right? When we find ourselves in that position, what are some things that we can and should do?
Welcome to Get Real with Alexis Jones. On this podcast, we'll dive into real relationships with real people, guided by the wisdom and perspective of some of the most seasoned voices in our community, our beloved seniors. Each week, we'll unpack the joys, challenges, and lessons learned about love, family, friendship, and everything in between. This is a space for heartfelt conversations, eye-opening truths, and powerful stories that will inspire and challenge the way you think about relationships. We're keeping it honest, unfiltered, and deeply meaningful. So settle in and let's get ready to get real. Let's jump in.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Real with Alexis. I am your host, Alexis, and I am so happy that you joined us for this episode. I'm excited about this topic. We've been talking about it for a number of weeks. It's important. It's what we talk about as seniors all the time. So we're going to get into some topics surrounding the main topic of mental health. Have you ever put down your glasses and wondered where they were? I have.
I do that frequently. Or my phone. Like I
Oh,
can't find the phone.
the phone. And you find them in the weirdest places. Anyway, we'll get into all of that. Welcome to my guest co-host again, Dr. Kim Reddy. Hi, Kim.
Hey, Alexis.
Glad you're here to help me talk about this very important topic.
Always
Because,
glad to be here.
yes, so mental health really matters. Sometimes often, I should say, we tend to our physical needs, but we don't think we should tend to our mental health needs. And so we want to talk about that because all that is entailed into having a healthy and happy and content filled golden years. That's what I think. I think it entails all of that.
I agree. And I
Yeah.
think it's so interesting that we tend to our physical health, but not our mental health.
Right.
And so it's almost like this notion because mental health is associated with crazy. People are
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And it's interesting to me because for some reason, if you have something going on physically, that's acceptable, but something going on in the brain or the head is not acceptable. And to me, it's almost like a blame game that people
Mm-hmm.
play, but you have less control over your mental health than
Mm-hmm.
you do your physical health. So
Mm-hmm.
when I think from my kind of deductive reasoning, it makes less sense to me that you
Yeah.
would be less tolerant of
Yeah.
someone who's having struggles with their mental health versus somebody who,
Yeah.
smoked or didn't take care of themselves or didn't eat right or didn't
Mhm.
exercise and got sick.
Right.
We tend to be more tolerant of
Mhm.
that, and that's never made sense to me.
It doesn't make sense, but that's exactly how people think. In fact, as you were talking, I'm thinking about how I can tell somebody, I was diagnosed with cancer and I'm getting sympathy, I'm getting empathy, I'm getting support, I'm getting prayers and all kinds of support. But if I say I'm depressed or I'm having panic attacks or I find myself being very anxious, I have anxiety, then there's a whole different response from most people.
That's true.
Like, you need to get it together.
Exactly. And this idea almost that we have more control over that. Like if
Yes,
you have
yes.
something going on with you physically, well, that's kind of out of your control. You're sick, but your mental health, to your point, you got to get it together.
Get it
There's this
together.
sense of you can fix that, you can
Right.
do something about it. And so I think it's rooted in people just not really understanding mental health and understanding that it really is a physiological imbalanced or problem, something it's real. It's not
Yes.
imagined. It's
Right.
not, as people want to say, just in your head,
Right.
although we're talking about something in your
Yes.
head.
Yes.
But there are reasons, they're diagnosable, treatable
Mhm.
reasons why people feel the way they feel or why they
Mhm.
have, mental illnesses or the
Mhm.
challenges or
Mhm.
struggles that they
Mhm.
have. And I think it's just not understanding it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the stigma attached to it, huge, especially in our community.
Yes,
Mhm,
especially in our
mhm.
community.
I mean, you dare not tell anybody you're having those issues or those symptoms, because you just don't say that to anybody. You just
Right.
don't because they're going to judge you.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It goes back. There are layers, and it seems to go back generations. You just need to suck it up.
Right.
As you mentioned earlier, if you are a Christian, if you follow Jesus Christ, then if you talk to other Christians alike, they're likely to say, pray about it. You just need to pray about it. Basically, pray about it and get over it, right? The understanding, as you just said, of mental health is so different than physical health. If I if I'm physically sick, you will pray for me, but you will totally support my going to the doctor to get help, to
Right.
get a to get a diagnosis, to get treatment. But you won't support me getting help if I say I'm having some mental health issues.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think you're right. I think there's a lack of understanding, but it's the stigma attached to it won't allow you to try to understand it in many cases.
Yeah, and I don't know why there's such a stigma. And I don't know. I think for some people, someone that's having maybe because there is that lack of understanding. So sometimes things we don't know and we don't understand, we find more frightening. So I
Mhm.
don't know if for the people that are around someone who is having some sort of mental illness, that's frightening to them or because they don't understand it. And I think part of it too goes back to, the brain is the most complex organ in the
Mhm.
body. And so I think that there is a lot of and we're still continuing to understand the brain
Mhm.
and how the brain
Absolutely. Mhm.
functions. And so I think, probably historically, there's been all of this kind of mystery and not understanding the brain and all. So I think part of it may be rooted in that. But I don't know. It's just,
You know what I think it could be as well? When during the time of slavery, we were not allowed to feel. We experienced a lot of things that were horrendous. The racism, the beatings, the snatching away of our spouses or our children, the rape, all of that, the torture, the work that we had to do for nothing, right? And to say, I'm sad, or this is depressing, or I'm angry, you certainly couldn't go to the master and say, I'm angry that you raped my wife. You couldn't do that. It would cost you your life or the life of another family member. So I think maybe I'm just speaking as a layperson here, not a historian, and certainly not an expert, but I know that I believe that a lot of that is rooted in you're not allowed to feel, and that we've perpetrated that throughout the generations in our families, in our community. Now, that may be different in other communities, but in other communities, this whole stigma is not as prevalent, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there probably are other communities where it's not as prevalent, but I think like mental illness, it's it goes even beyond just how we feel. It
Mhm.
is what it is.
It's what it
It's
is.
what it is, which is truly
Mhm.
physiological imbalances and things that are illnesses. I mean, they're
Yes.
illnesses because when we think about suicide,
Mm,
somebody doesn't commit suicide because they're just sad.
absolutely.
I mean, it's more than
Yeah.
just that,
Yeah.
We think about even diagnosable mental illnesses, like people that have personality disorders, people that are schizophrenic. I mean, those are diagnosable
Mhm.
medical
Mhm.
illnesses. And we don't, I mean, that's always, like such shame associated with it. Like
Yes.
if you have somebody in your family that has a diagnosable mental illness, you'll talk about somebody that, has cancer or that has heart disease or has diabetes, but you're not going to talk about, someone in your family who is a schizophrenic or who has a
Oh, no.
personality disorder or something like
Right. We
that.
don't talk about
Right. We
that.
don't talk
Mm-mm.
about that, but in the same way, that diabetes is a disease, so
Exactly.
is schizophrenia, and so are other mental health
Mhm.
disorders.
I wouldn't tell you. I tell you that, my brother has diabetes. I'm really worried about him, but I might not say he's a schizophrenic
Exactly.
or he's threatening suicide. There are
Exactly.
some things you just don't talk about.
Right, and that is where the stigma is, that we don't talk about it and that there's such shame and embarrassment
Yeah.
associated.
As if it's your fault.
Exactly.
You did that.
Right, and again, in my thinking, I go back to I have less control over suicidal ideation, schizophrenia than maybe I do if I didn't, exercise and didn't eat right.
Mhm.
There are things that we can
Absolutely.
do that can lower our risk of heart disease and
Right,
diabetes.
right,
There are
right,
things we can take
right.
responsibility for that, but not in the schizophrenia. I mean,
Mhm,
that is it is what it is, you know
mhm,
what I'm saying? And so I
mhm.
think we have less control sometimes over mental illness than we do physical illness, but yet
Yeah,
we're so quick to be embarrassed
yeah,
and blame
yeah,
the
yeah.
person for a mental illness
Right.
when, you know, don't have the same level of, prevention that we do
Absolutely.
for some of our
Absolutely.
physical illnesses.
Mhm.
And so I just find that it's just interesting to
Yeah,
me how we
yeah.
think
It's
about
hard to
that.
wrap your mind around that. So let me just say this. Almost 1 in 5 adults over 60, since we're addressing seniors, experience a mental health concern like depression or anxiety. Yet, less than 1/3 of those who need help actually seek it for the reasons that we've just been talking about, often because of stigma, shame, or the belief that feeling down is just a part of aging. It's not. It's not. And so, as I said earlier, I believe those numbers are even higher in the Black community. But here's the truth: mental health challenges are not a normal or inevitable part of growing older. And talking about them openly is the first step to change. We have to get rid of the secrets. It's not a thing you have to go around telling everybody in your circle, but you need to tell somebody. You need to
Right.
talk to somebody. Somebody needs to know I'm in trouble. So that's exactly what we're diving into today. So I want to ask some questions for us just to discuss. Why does mental health matter, especially in senior years? Because it matters, as we've been talking about. But it matters particularly in senior years because there are in my observation, there are some contributors, right? Like loneliness and isolation. You tend to be in that position as you age. Maybe your spouse is no longer there, or your children, you're an empty nester, like I am. And so you can be and if you're retired, you're not getting up and going to work and engaged all day and then coming home. So your lifestyle has changed. And so now what? Right?
Right.
I remember when I was getting ready to retire, I was getting all the paperwork in order. And I remember some of my friends saying, "But Alexis, what are you going to do?" Because one of my friends said, "I can't retire because I don't know what I'd do with myself." She was afraid of this, of not knowing, what do I do when Monday morning rolls around and I don't get up, get dressed, and go to work? What do I do with my life? And a lot of seniors are in that position. Oh, there are things that we not only can do, but we must do. So I was thinking about, what do we do? Because some things, for example, you mentioned earlier, they just are schizophrenia. They just are. But do you think that when we get in a position of anxiety or depression or things like that, we allow things that's happening to us to build up? They just kind of pile up. And you don't just jump to suicide, for example. What has happened before that, right?
Yeah.
What has happened that you're not dealing with because you don't feel like you have permission to deal with it, at least not openly, and it just keeps piling up? It doesn't go away.
Yeah, I do think that it's progressive.
Mm.
So I think there's one thing. So I think we all, and I think it's important to be able to differentiate because, like you said, I think we all feel sad. Sad is a normal emotion. There
Mhm.
are times when it's
Mhm.
appropriate to feel
Mhm.
sad. We should feel sad. Uh, but when sad becomes don't want to do anything. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to get dressed. I don't feel like taking care of myself. I don't feel like taking a shower. I
Mhm.
don't want to be around
Mhm.
people. Then we've moved from sad to something else.
Mhm.
And so I think that you have to pay attention to that. And so I think when you begin to feel hopeless, when you begin to feel like I have no purpose, when you begin to feel like why am I even here or there's no reason, then I think that's when it's not just sad, but
Yeah.
there's more going on. And depression is about a chemical imbalance.
Mhm.
And the question is what triggers that, what
Yes.
causes that?
Yes.
And it can be treated. It can be treated with medications, a combination of medications and therapy. So it can be treated, but
It
I think
can.
it's important to recognize
Mhm.
when you've gone from, you know, I'm sad or I'm just kind of having a bad day or I'm going through, because sometimes we go through periods
We
where it's just
do.
like, things are not going well, or it's harder for me
Right.
to motivate myself to
Yeah.
do things. But we should be able to come out of that. And when
Mhm.
we're not able to do that, then I think that's when we really have to pay attention to that. And
Mhm.
I think there are a lot of reasons why it affects seniors more. And I think things like, you know, chronic illnesses,
Mm.
you're not feeling well or you're dealing
Mhm.
with the illness, loss of spouse, family members,
Mhm.
you know,
And
even
that seems to come more frequently as we age.
right, because your siblings, your
Mhm.
friends,
Mhm.
I mean, you've seen and experienced a lot of loss
Mhm.
in those around you, your peer group, you see people, and so that becomes very
Yeah.
difficult. So I think, illness is that isolation.
Chronic pain.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if people associate that with those feelings of sadness and depression, but to be in pain all the time.
I mean, you don't feel like getting up, getting dressed. That becomes too much to try and do. So
Uh,
I think all of that contributes to, your mental health. And I firmly believe that your mental health impacts every aspect of your life, including your physical health.
mhm.
So it really is the driver of so much.
So, what are some things that we can and should do if we find ourselves in a position where we've gone beyond just sadness, for example? All I want to do is sit at home and sit in my favorite chair or stay in bed, don't really want to talk to anybody. And so I've gone beyond just a period of sadness, which I'm so glad you talked about. Let me talk about that for just a second. Some things are just feelings: happy, sad, excited, anger, scared, all of that. They're just feelings and they're okay. But then, as you mentioned, sadness can turn into something else,
Right.
right? When we find ourselves in that position, what are some things that we can and should do?
The most important thing is talk to someone, share those feelings with someone. I think the issue is that for many seniors, there is not that someone to tell. And so I think it's finding that person you can tell, whether it's a friend, a family member, whether it's a healthcare provider, a caregiver. You've got to share that with
Mhm.
someone. The other piece of that is if it's a family member, a caregiver, they have to acknowledge that,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
you have to tell
Yeah.
someone that's not gonna be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you'll be
Yeah.
alright."
Oh,
You'll be
you will
alright.
be all right.
Right,
The worst thing.
right,
My
and so
goodness.
you've gotta I think that's where educating our
Mm.
community is important, because
Absolutely.
when somebody comes to you and they're like, "This is how I feel," you have to help them.
It's a cry.
It's a
It's a cry
cry
for
for right, and
help.
so it can't be just like and even I mean, and I am a Christian, and I love my church, and I believe in God and Christ, but sometimes church folks are the main ones that you be all right, just pray about it, or, God's got you. And I believe that, but God also has provided people with knowledge and resources that we can take advantage of right now and
Mhm.
here. And so I think sometimes, that's one of those things that trust me, I believe in prayer because God has delivered
Oh,
me from many
absolutely.
things.
Yes.
But in addition to
Yes.
that,
He has
I
him.
sought medical
Yeah.
care
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
just rely on you know, prayers to cure my breast cancer.
Right.
I went to a doctor and I
Mhm.
had a mastectomy and months of chemotherapy. And yes, God delivered me. So I think to me, that's where we have to understand, that it's not just enough to just say it's
It's
prayer
prayer
and
and
it's prayer
exactly.
and
Just like with physical
it's
illnesses, it's prayer
prayer
and
and so I
right.
just think, back to what should people do? Tell someone.
Tell
Tell
someone.
someone how you feel. And and we have to educate so that when you tell someone, that person understands that it is a cry for help. I need to help you access resources, you know?
You know what I've noticed? When in recent years, I didn't I don't remember this happening earlier. When I have my annual wellness visit, for example, or a physical exam, now they ask questions about depression.
Yes.
Have you felt depression? Or and they'll ask you about the symptoms. That didn't happen earlier.
Yeah.
Mhm. Can you
Yeah.
talk about that for a minute? Why that change?
Because I think it's as we've begun to understand uh the prevalence of mental health and mental illness, I think so it's part of it. So it's kind of like we screen for other things,
Mhm.
we have to screen for that too.
Mhm.
So again, it's part of the medical profession recognizing that no, we have to normalize this too.
Yeah.
So we have to normalize it by asking about it, you know, so we're screening for it. And then based upon that, then it's, you know, follow up and then,
Yeah.
you know, referral the same way you screen for other things. So I think that's an
Yeah.
important part of it. And in the same way, too, we also screen for dementia. You know,
Mhm.
like they'll have you do like, you know, can you draw the face of a clock? And so again, it's
And
understanding
remember those 2 words?
what.
No, 3
Oh
words.
yeah, yeah,
That test, 3
exactly.
words I'm gonna ask you in a few minutes. Then
Right.
you have a whole conversation, and then they say, "Well, what were those 3 words?"
Exactly, and so we're screening for early signs of dementia,
Mhm.
we're screening for mental health issues, you know,
Mhm.
early detection, and so that's all part of recognizing that when we talk about whole health, we're
Yes.
talking about literally from head to
We're a
toe,
whole
because we
person.
used to talk about it from here,
Yes.
from the neck
Yes.
down, and
Yes.
realizing that,
Yes.
no, there's a whole person,
Yeah.
part of the whole person,
There's
in
a
fact, a
lot going
really
on up here.
important person, part of the person up here. So that's
Yeah.
what that is about, a
Yeah.
real push within the medical profession to screen for it and to normalize it and to
Yeah.
recognize and to intervene early.
Mm. I don't care what specialist I go to, they ask those screening questions about depression. I went about some leg pain. Are you feeling depressed? I say, sometimes.
Yeah,
And actually, I mean, I'll tell them and they might ask in the last 2 weeks or something like that. And if I say, "Well, yeah, I've experienced some of that." Well, then they'll probe a little bit more. But the therapist that I see was referred to me years ago by my primary care doctor.
was
And
it based on a screening something or
I wish
something
I
else?
could remember.
Okay,
It's been so many years. I've been cuckoo for a long time. See, I shouldn't say that because
that's
we
right.
just
Ignore that.
forget I said
Yeah, she
that.
did not say that.
But I can't remember. But she asked me about some symptoms, and I remember having this conversation with her, my primary care physician, and then she gave me a list of names, and I ended up calling the one that I've been seeing. And the wonderful thing is, first of all, you have to have the right fit. Everybody who has the title of therapist, counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist may not be the right fit for you if you meet with them. It doesn't mean you have to continue to meet with that person.
Right.
So, because I met with a few of them and there was nothing wrong with them. I just didn't feel like we clicked,
Mm.
connected.
And that's important.
And that's very
But that's the
important.
same with a primary care doctor. You might
Yes.
not click with that doctor.
Yes.
Doesn't mean you don't need to go to a doctor. It just
Right.
means that's not the right one for you. So
Right.
it's the
Right.
same thing.
Same thing. And so, on a personal level, I'll tell you that it's just been a life-saving experience for me because once we built a relationship and I trusted her, I could talk about things openly. Even things that I wouldn't say to anybody else, right? I could talk openly if they were bothering me. And that's important because there were some things. See, what I found is that sometimes you need someone to help you to see the forest through the trees, right? Because sometimes you got all this stuff all jumbled up or piled up. And if you have someone that you trust that will listen, they can help you sort through that.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's exactly what you need only. Other times you may need to go further in order to address that particular issue. But I have no shame in telling people that I've been seeing a therapist for a long time. I see her once a month, but after Herman passed away, I started seeing her a little more often. I said, I think I need to see you a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the wonderful thing about her, we had built a relationship. I sent her a message through her portal that my son had passed away, and she called me. So it becomes more than uh, a patient doctor experience. Somebody cares about your
Yeah,
well-being that you trust. And if you want to recover or heal, that's part of that's been part of the healing for me. My prayers are when people say, I'm praying for you, please keep praying. Keep praying. But it doesn't mean I won't reach out for the help that I need in other ways. And
right.
I'm not ashamed to say that at all. I'm standing because it takes all of that, or it did for me,
Yeah,
or it has for me. So I just want our golden years to be our best
yeah,
years. And they could be better. We can still live happy and at peace and have contentment and enjoy our friends and our families. There are women and men that come to my center on walkers, canes, rollators, wheelchairs, and we sit there and we laugh and talk. I have a lady in my line dance class. She came in her walker, and I said, "Oh my goodness, she's gonna fall." And so I said to her, I said, now, when we get ready to turn, you don't have to turn. You just, stay here because we're coming back around. No, I want to turn. If everybody's turning, I want to turn too. And I said, okay. So we did this half turn and you could hear her walker go click, 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 click. I was like, oh my God.
but she did it.
She did it. She
Good
was
for her.
determined, and
Yeah,
now she's off the walker. She had an accident or something that happened like that, and she's off the walker. Now she's on the cane. And then I have another good friend. She dances with me, and she had to have hip surgery. See, these are the things that we face as we get older.
yeah.
And she just had it about 3 days ago. So she said, I think I'm turning the corner. And the therapist asked her, now, what are your goals? She said, I want to be line dancing in 6 weeks.
So that was like important to her.
Yeah.
But I think, you speak to kind of what do what are some of the things that we need to do. And I think like for like your line dancing in your line dancing class feels a lot of those. One is physical activity,
Mhm.
because I think that's critically
Critical,
important. Just
yes.
because we're older doesn't
Mhm.
mean we can't and don't need to be physically active.
Right.
I think it's also important with physical activity to find something that you really enjoy doing
Mhm,
because you'll
mhm,
stick with it. I mean,
mhm.
I go to Orange Theory,
Right.
and I look around and I'm like, these people probably have no idea how old I am, but I'm in there lifting, but I enjoy that.
You enjoy it.
So I think so it's important to be
Mm.
physically active and to find something that you enjoy. But I think equally as important, it's the sense of community that your line dancing
Yes.
class has. Because it's
Yes.
like, that Cheers, you want to go someplace where everybody knows your name.
Right.
And so I
Yes,
think that
yes.
coming there,
Yes,
you
sis.
know people, they know you, and
Mhm.
that sense of community is so critically important.
I
And relationships, because you have relationships with the people in your line
Mhm.
dancing class. And then you all, like when you perform, and it's that sense of being part of a team
Right,
and working
right,
together to an
right,
end. So
right,
I'm sitting here
right.
plugging your line dancing,
Yes,
because it really is true,
it
though. When
is
I
true.
think
It's
about it,
true.
all those things so that, when you all plan and you have your shirts, there's a
Mhm.
sense of purpose,
Yeah, and we
that
have our matching shirts, so
yeah.
now we're one.
One, and it's
Mhm.
that
I'm
sense
no
of
longer alone.
purpose and
Yes.
working towards something,
Mhm.
and then that sense of accomplishment and
Mhm.
pride when you perform. So there's so many things
So
that your
much.
line dancing class
Yes.
brings to seniors.
Yeah.
So everybody join Alexis's or find a
Hey,
line dancing class or something near you
yes.
that
Yeah.
brings that to you where
Right.
you're able
Find
to do
something
that.
that you're passionate about. If you love line dancing or think you might, come on, join me. But there are line dance classes in your community as well.
Exactly. Or
So,
find whatever it is
but
that you're
whatever that thing
passionate
is,
about. If it's
because,
walking, find,
hmm
someone else or a walking group or something.
hmm
But I think all of that is so important. And I
hmm
think, that those are some of the things that we need to do.
hmm
And I think the other thing, dementia and forgetfulness, we
hmm
mentioned that are two completely different
yeah,
things. We do have to do things to keep our mind sharp. I mean, it
hmm
is really one of those things like any other muscle in the body. If you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, if
yes,
we just sat here and did
yes,
nothing,
get
muscles would
weaker.
atrophy, we'd get weak. And so I think using your brain works the same way.
hmm
And sitting there watching TV all day is not an active use of your brain. That is very
It's not.
passive.
It is.
So even if, you're sitting there and you do puzzles or word finds or whatever, but I think even like your line dancing, because people have to think and remember the
Mhm,
steps, so it
mhm,
exercises your mind too.
mm,
And I think that's an important part to,
yeah,
ward off that forgetfulness or
mhm,
can't remember things like that. While we're talking about it, in terms of dementia and forgetfulness, dementia is not a normal part of aging. It's
say
not.
that again. Yeah.
Dementia is not a normal
Did you
part
all
of
hear that?
aging.
It is not a normal
Part
part
of
of
aging.
aging.
Dementia is a diagnosable disease. It's a disorder. So it's
Mhm,
not normal. And there are many things that can cause dementia. So Alzheimer's is one of the causes of dementia. So
mhm,
people say dementia, there are other things that can cause. There are
mhm,
a number of disorders that can cause
mhm.
dementia, and Alzheimer's is just one of them. So it's not the same as Alzheimer's is not the same as
Yeah.
dementia. But again, so it's important to not just, yeah, sometimes I'll forget where I put my key, or sometimes it's like, where's my phone? And it's in the closet, and
It
it's
can
like,
be in the strangest
yeah, and it's like,
places.
but, I find it and I'm good and it doesn't impact my activities of daily
Mhm,
living. It's not like I forget how to come
mhm,
home or I'm wandering around or I forget how to do certain
mhm,
things. That's not normal. And
mhm.
so I think that, when you're with your family members, when you notice that, and sometimes it's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I've shared this with you before. My mother was diagnosed with dementia, and my
Mhm,
mom died from dementia. And so I can remember when my sister and I first started noticing that and this is more than just
mhm,
forgetfulness, like she would be in the house and kind of forget her way in the
mhm,
house. And we
mhm,
were like, no, that's not normal. It was more than just forgetting where she put things. And
mhm,
then it was even like she'd leave and get confused about how to get back,
mhm,
And
mhm.
so my mom was diagnosed with dementia, and we ended up moving her to assisted living facility just because she could really get the care and the
Mm.
stimulation
Yeah.
that she needed on a daily basis. And so again, so I have personal experience
Mhm.
with that, but I can remember with my mom when we first started asking her about her forgetfulness, she would get angry with us. It was
Yeah.
just like, there's nothing wrong with, because that, people don't want to even entertain that
Mhm.
because like you said, that's it's a horrible disease to have, and many people would rather have a
A
physical
physical
disease than a
disease.
mental disease. And to watch someone suffer from dementia and literally
Yeah.
slowly forget
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
was very difficult and
Mhm.
painful.
Mm.
And so my mom, I mean, for a long time, it was like she would not have any of it,
Mhm.
and so it was really difficult. She didn't wanna be assessed for it. We go to I mean, it was really difficult because she didn't wanna accept that
Yeah.
that was happening to her, so it's a difficult
How
diagnosis.
did that affect you and your sister?
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. It's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do was accept that in
Mhm.
my mom and
Mhm.
then ultimately make the decision to place her in an assisted living facility. Fortunately, my mother had worked for the government for many, many years. And so she had excellent insurance and benefits,
Mhm.
and we were able to put her in a really good facility that provided a lot
Mhm.
of good care, and so for a lot of families, it's a really difficult
Yeah.
decision. Do I keep them at home? And that's a lot. We've talked about caregivers. It's a lot to care for someone who has dementia just because it's such a steady decline, you know? And eventually, like with my mom, and you never know how it's going to play out because eventually my mom wasn't able to walk anymore, so she was wheelchair bound. And then just, to see her memory slowly fade away, the things that she didn't
Mm.
remember. So it was really I it was unbelievably painful and difficult
Mhm.
to experience that with someone that you love. So in some ways I thought, it was hard, but I had a very long time to say goodbye to my mom. It was like
Mhm.
a gradual I got to
Mhm.
say goodbye to her because
Mhm.
I knew, what was happening and
Mhm.
that it wasn't gonna get better.
Yeah.
But it was really hard. It was
Yeah.
hard for both my sister and
Yeah.
I.
I know she's thankful that you all were there, and I'm sorry you had to go through that because that had to be hard. My parents passed early, but I just know this, image of my mom growing up being this strong woman, and when you see them have these health challenges, whether they're mental or physical, and begin to decline, it is so
It's
difficult.
so hard.
Oh
It's
my
so hard.
goodness. Thank you for sharing that,
Yeah,
Kim.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we talked about that in detail. So, we want you to take care of yourselves. There's so much that we can talk about, and maybe we'll pick up again on a lot of this. There's a lot to our mental health. We hit on topics like grief and loss and the importance of your diet and exercise, both mental and physical, the difference between Alzheimer's, dementia, and just forgetting where I put my keys, that which happens a lot. I
Right.
mean, Kim, and why do they end up in the strangest of places? When I
Because
do finally find the object that I've misplaced, my goodness.
Because if they were someplace obvious, you would see it. You would look and, "Oh, there they
Oh,
are."
there they
So the
are.
fact that you can't see I mean, I've looked in my refrigerator
Me
sometimes because 'cause
too.
I'm like, "Did I stick these in the refrigerator?" And then sometimes I just literally have to say, "And I'm not gonna look for them right now because it's making me
Right.
crazy." And then I'll just kinda, "Okay, look here,"
Yeah.
and then you see it and
Yeah.
you're just kinda like, "How in the world did that happen?"
I wrote a poem about, because I write poetry. I haven't written any lately, but I wrote a poem when my boys were small about I think I entitled it "The Last Minute" because we're rushing out of the house. I gotta get them all of us to school because I'm a teacher and they're students. All of us have gotta get to school, and I can't find stuff. I can't find my stuff. I can't and they can't find their stuff, and it's the last minute, and we're going crazy. Well, they're not going crazy because they know I'm gonna I'm the one going crazy. But it is so frustrating. So the last thing that happened, most recent, I should say, is I had my wallet in my backpack when we went to perform on Wednesday. Now, I usually carry the backpack and my small purse, but we were going to this facility and I didn't want all these bags. I was trying to simplify. Now, one of the things that we're told is to have a routine and try to stick to that routine. We won't lose so many things, but no, not me. I said, well, I think today I'll do this. Uh-uh.
So you did
Anyway,
something
I
different.
did something different. I thought it was a good idea. So first thing I got there, and I had to go up to the stage to make sure the DJ had our music right. Took care of that. I was so proud of myself because we've had some mishaps with the music. So he had the music. We were good to go. When it was time to go, I couldn't find my car keys. I took everything out of that backpack and I said, where got my car? Anyway, when I went to talk to the DJ, put the keys right there.
So how'd you figure out that they were there? Did you just yeah.
I had to backtrack. I said, everywhere I went, I'm just that. Well, actually, I think one of my class participants said, well, ask the DJ to make an
Oh,
announcement. That's what it was. So I was really going up there to see if he would make an announcement that someone has lost their keys.
and
And as soon
there
as
they
I
were.
got there, and so then I drove home, and now I had to get some gas. So I take the wallet out of my backpack and I take the card out, I get the gas, but I didn't put the wallet back in the backpack. So that night I was looking for some ID to do something online, and I couldn't find my wallet. Now, losing my glasses is bad. Losing my wallet,
Yeah.
panic. I looked everywhere, and I didn't know where else to look. So what happened was the next day, I went to the car. I said, I'm going to look in the car one more time. They were stuck between the door and the bottom of the passenger side in the front passenger seat. I mean,
So
Kim,
had it fallen out of your purse or something? How did it
no,
get on the
because I
passenger
didn't have, remember,
side?
I didn't have my purse. I took the wallet out at the gas station and I said, I didn't put it back in the backpack.
Okay.
I put it under the dash. I don't know how it got, I think with all the stuff I was shuffling around, it got pushed to the side and down and it fell. I'm really glad it didn't end up on the ground because it was sitting on kind of that lip between the seat and the door.
Wow.
That's where my wallet was.
And the fact that you went out there and found it again, did you
Um,
just like start tearing the car apart,
yes,
like looking
yes,
everywhere?
yes. And I don't know why, but I went around because I was looking everywhere. I guess that's why I went around not thinking that would
That it
help
would
me.
even be there?
Right. But I was desperate. I just decided I've got to look everywhere because I'm thinking, oh God, somebody found my wallet. Because you create this whole scenario. They took out the credit cards. Oh God, I got to call the credit card companies. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I opened the front passenger door, and and if I hadn't paid attention, it would have fallen on the ground.
Tell
For
you.
me, that's a God moment. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he really does look out for us. And
Yeah,
I
he
see him in
does.
the little
Yeah.
things like that. You
Yeah.
don't think matter? That's big.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, and then glasses, my phone. I think I lose this more often. And I can't. And sometimes I can ding it to find out where it is, but sometimes it doesn't work. And so it can be I can't even tell you all the strange places I've found my phone.
Like, I have, like the thing with my phone that makes me crazy is because I have an Android. Yes,
Mhm.
I am an Android person and
She needs
proud
an
of it.
iPhone. She's proud of it, but she
Yeah.
needs an iPhone.
No,
Go ahead.
I am proud of
And she needs to retire. No,
So, but when I lose my phone, I can't even call anybody to tell them to call me and help me find my phone.
because
So
we've given up landlines.
yes, and so I am literally like, I can't even call my daughter and tell her to call me and help me find my phone. So I really and I don't have like, you know,
Right.
so I literally am like, what am I gonna do? It's like there's no way for me to find this phone. And sometimes I'm like, because my daughter fortunately calls quite often. So I'm like, I'll just have to wait for her to call and then hope I hear it. But that's always like, I can't even call somebody and tell them to call my phone.
It's crazy. And, when you talk to seniors, we all have those stories where we put something down and we can't I think a lot of times is we're do you multitask?
And I'm not good at it
I'm
at
not good
all.
at it.
That's why I've
When I say
literally
I multitask, it means I'm trying to do several things at once, and I'm
yeah.
not good at that.
Yeah, I cannot, and I literally have had to say I cannot
Right,
multitask
right,
because
right.
I have to really focus on what I'm
Mhm.
doing because that's when I'll put something somewhere or I'll forget something, and so
Yes.
I
It's
just
when you're multitasking every
yeah,
time.
attempting to multitask.
Attempting. Okay, so I wash my clothes or I put them near the washer, and then I'll go instead of putting them in the washing machine, I'll put them in front of the washing machine. Then I'll go make up the bed. And I won't make the bed up all the way. I'll think, oh, you're supposed to be put. So then I'll go back and I'll put the clothes in. And then I don't go back to the bed. I go in the bathroom and start. It's like I start all these things and I don't finish anything. And I have to tell myself, Alexis, go pick up your bed and don't stop until you've made it
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I mean, and this is a whole 'nother thing, like, kinda multitasking, it's a myth.
Yes.
No one can multitask, and I tell my students this all the time. I'm like, "You can do multiple things, like, in tandem, but it's like like you do, you start, you finish, because you can't do them at the same
Mm-mm.
time." And so again, you focus on one thing, but if you start something else, you leave that and then you go
Yes.
to something else.
Yes.
So we're not really multitasking.
Hmm.
We're just doing bits of things
Yes.
in a certain time
And we
period.
boast about being able to
Right, and no one can do it,
You
and it's
can't
not
do it.
effective or efficient,
It's
and so I
not.
tell my students, "When you're studying, study, turn your phone
Right.
off, don't get distracted, because all you're doing is diverting your
Yeah.
attention from one thing to the
Going back
next,
and
just
forth.
going back, and that's so
Yeah.
inefficient." Yeah, so I've just decided, like, my daughter will call me if I'm at the grocery store, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm at the grocery." She said, "Okay," because she said, "I know you can't shop and talk." I'm like, "No, I cannot," because it's like, if I gotta pay attention to, because otherwise I'll forget
You
something,
really
wandering
need it.
down an aisle and forget why I'm there, or I won't get everything, and so she knows I can't distract you.
Okay. Have you ever walked into a room, you were doing something, and you said, "Okay, I gotta go to the bedroom." Then you get to the bedroom and say, "Now why am I here?"
All the time. All the time, because you started thinking about
Yeah.
something else,
Yes.
and so you forgot about that thing, and then
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta stand there, and sometimes it'll come to you, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, okay, it'll eventually, and
Right.
sometimes it seems like when you stop trying really hard to
Mhm.
think about what that thing is you forgot, it'll pop in your head.
It it really does.
Yeah.
Sometimes I try to force it. Like I'll walk into a room and say, "Now why am I here?" And then I'm just so determined. I'll say, "I'm gonna stand right here till I remember why I came in this room." And most times I can't.
Yeah.
So then when I go back and start doing something else, then I'll remember and
Yeah.
I'll go back. But I'll tell that is not Alzheimer's or
No, it's
dementia.
not.
It just
It
happens.
just
It just
happens, and it's
happens.
because for one thing, you got a lot on your
A
mind.
lot on our
Usually, it's when
mind.
you got a lot on
Mm,
your mind, or it may be if you're tired,
mm.
that'll happen, or it may be because you're not focusing
Yeah.
on the thing you should be doing.
Yeah.
And so those are
That's
things that
usually
you can change behaviors and improve. So
mhm.
focus on one thing, write yourself a to-do list and follow
That's
that. So those
that's a
are
really
things,
good
right?
idea.
Those are things that you can do and you can
Yeah.
adopt different behaviors.
That
So
keeps
that's
me
very
sane when
different.
I stop and before I've got all these things to do, and if I try to just do them, then I'm trying to remember everything and it fail. But if I stop before I tackle all of that and write a to-do list, and then I could just check it off,
Yeah,
and it feels good.
it
And I
does.
feel like I'm accomplishing something.
Yeah,
And I'm not so crazy because I can
yeah,
get a little crazy, just
yeah.
a little bit, just
Well,
a
I
little bit.
know, like, one time, like, not long ago, maybe it's been about it'll be a year in January, so it was last January. I got really concerned leading up to January because I felt like I was forgetting things more than just, "Oh, I just forgot that." It was just like I completely forgot, like, my line of thinking or whatever. And so given my mom's dementia history, I really got
Oh,
concerned. I was like, "Oh
sure.
my gosh, is this early dementia?" So I was talking to my doctor, and so they said, "Well, let's just do a cognitive assessment, like a real cognitive assessment. So I said, okay. So I went and got that done. I went to Emory. It's a 4-hour
I took
process.
that.
Yes.
I didn't expect that. Nobody prepared me.
It
I was like,
was
it's not over yet.
no, I mean, and it is intense.
It's intense.
And I was determined. I was like figuring and thinking, well, of course, everything was fine. And so
Mhm.
when I talked to the person who gave me the assessment, and I said, well, why is it I forget these things? And so she said, you're just because you're trying to do too many things. She
Mhm.
said, how do you help yourself remember stuff? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'd put a post-it note here or, she said, why don't you get yourself a daily planner and write down the things you need to do and get in the habit of
Yeah.
reviewing that and
Yeah.
checking it off. And it was kind of like, huh.
Huh.
So I went to
What a
TJ
novel
right, I
idea.
went to TJ Maxx and bought this beautiful little that I actually now use
Oh, that's
regularly,
great. Yeah.
and it's made such a difference.
Yeah.
Now, I still have my occasional Post-it note
Yeah,
to
yeah,
remind me
yeah.
to water my plants or something, but, again, that was different, but it was really I was like, I gotta know this
Yeah.
because unlike a lot of people, it's like, I'm like, if something's going on, I wanna know because I
Mhm.
wanna know early enough
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
try and have, some sort of impact. But again, I think it's important for people to be willing to, like, say, "Okay, I need to know about this," and not
Mhm.
just say, "I'd rather not know,"
Yeah.
because not knowing doesn't make it
Yeah.
not happen.
Yeah, it doesn't make it go away.
No.
If it's there, it's there. So we hope that this has been more of an overview about the importance of mental health and wellness. And I hope that we've helped you, especially when it comes to the shame and the stigma attached to getting the help that you need, or you may be caring for an elderly person. So Kim shared some of her personal experiences with you, but I hope that this has been helpful for you and that when you lose those keys next time, you'll find them. You'll find them. Just stop thinking about them for a minute, you'll find them. Or the glasses that you're looking for that are on your head, you'll find them. It happens. But when you have a need that goes beyond the things that we are laughing about, I hope you'll reach out for help because these are our golden years. We want them to be as healthy in every way, as enjoyable in every way, and get connected with people, enjoy people. Because, we tend to go through the things that we experience in our lives that are difficult. We tend to want to isolate when we're in trouble. And you might need some alone time. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you go into isolation and kind of remain there, that's not a good place to be. So I hope you'll like, subscribe, comment. And if you have some resources or you want to share some of your personal experiences, we'd love to hear them. Please comment. I'm going to attach some resources that I found online for anyone who wants to reach out and get help. Again, I started with my primary care physician. They are a wonderful source to help us find the help that we need and get help. You're a whole person, mind, body, spirit. You've got to take care of all of you, and we're going to take care of all of us, right?
That's right, head to toe.
Head to toe. That's why we get pedicures, right? Got to get that pedicure.
That
Got to take care of the toes, got to take care of the head and everything else in
that's
between.
right.
Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.